Hi, and welcome back to the Adored Woman podcast. Today, I'm going to speak about what to do when a man pulls away. Now, I know from personal experience that when a man you're keen on pulls away is one of the most destabilising feelings in dating. You've met someone, he's been coming on strong, messaging every day, making plans, showing you he's into you, and then something shifts. He's quieter, more distant, the messages slow down, and you get that sinking, awful feeling in your stomach that he's pulling away. And when that happens, everything in you wants to do something about it. And today I want to talk about what that something usually is, why it most often doesn't make things better, and what to do instead. Because there is something you can do. It just probably is the opposite of what your instincts are telling you. I'm your host, Naomie Thompson, and before we start, I'd love for you to tap the follow button for the Adored Woman podcast. So I want to start with something that happened to me when I was dating, because I think it may sound very familiar to some of you who've been on the apps on and off or for a little while. There was a man who came on really, really strong. I got loads of attention. I got gifts. I got lots of contact for a few months. And then he just disappeared. He dropped out of communication completely. So I left it a little while, but then I reached out. Nothing. I reached out again and nothing. It's like I was throwing out bait, hoping he would catch the line and that I could reel him back in. And I knew I was doing it, but that anxious girl in me just couldn't stop herself. And eventually we did reconnect. And we started talking again, and then he disappeared again. But that time I just left it. Because all I was doing was prolonging the pain. Every time I reached out, I was giving him another chance to do exactly the same thing again. And eventually I had to stop and ask myself, what is he actually showing me here? Because here's what I know now that I didn't quite know then. Is that he was showing me exactly who he is. I just didn't want to hear it. I had got really attached to the idea of him. And I'd got really attached to the vision I had of a future relationship and everything unfolding the way I wanted it to. I didn't want to see the reality. And this is the experience I had with my dad. I was constantly working hard for his attention and then feeling hurt in his absences. And here's the contrast I want you to hold on to throughout this episode. When you're in a really good relationship with a man who is relationship ready and emotionally mature, it isn't confusing. It just isn't. A man who's intentional about being with you, a man who genuinely wants a committed relationship, is not going to risk losing you once he's found you. Disappearing for days or weeks would not feel good to him because he'd know what he was risking. And that's the difference. And we'll come back to that. So there could be many reasons a man pulls away when you're dating. One, he struggles with the increasing emotional intimacy that's required in loving relationships, and he pulls away to avoid the vulnerable feelings. So two, he maybe is processing something and needs space to do that. One of the episodes here is a client of mine who, when she was dating her husband, he'd been great, he'd been in touch, he'd been planning dates, he'd been really, really showing her that he was interested. One weekend, dropped out of communication for the whole weekend. So she started to feel really confused. But because she was my client, she just focused on herself. She was rotational dating. She went on another date. She did stuff with her girlfriends. By Monday, he was back in touch. He had just taken the weekend to be sure that he was ready to commit to her and willing to commit. And they were back in touch Monday, and he was clear that he was. And they haven't looked back. Very quickly, they were exclusive, and then now they're married and happily married. Sometimes a man is processing something. And also, if you watch my episode with Dr. John Gray about how a man replenishes his testosterone when he takes space. But I'm really not talking about someone who is hot and cold, hot and cold. That is just not going to work for you in a committed relationship. And another reason a man pulls away is it could be he's just not into you and he's just not saying it. Some people don't have the emotional maturity to just have a straight conversation. And again, that says a lot about him and his ability to be in the ups and downs of a relationship. A great relationship is generally pretty steady, but you are still going to have the tricky times. So those are just 3 potential ways a man pulls away. There will be many, many more. So let's look at what is actually going on when a man pulls away in early dating. I work with the idea that we unconsciously choose partners who have the same tolerance for intimacy that we do. So if you think back over your past relationships, did you tend to choose people who weren't quite able to give you the closeness you were really craving? If you did, that's not a coincidence, because on a deep level, it felt safe. Because someone who wanted to come really close might require a level of vulnerability in you that felt uncomfortable or unfamiliar. I always chose men who couldn't articulate their love for me. They were not verbally affectionate, and I deeply craved it and wanted it, but I just couldn't receive it. I couldn't let it in. I felt too vulnerable. So on a deep level, unconsciously, I kept choosing these men who found it incredibly hard to communicate their feelings verbally. So what happens is you meet someone, there's chemistry, he's coming towards you and it feels really good. You start to open up and let your guard down. And then you start to feel him pull back. And the gap that opens up between he and you starts to feel horrible, starts to feel unsafe. You start feeling anxious. It can bring up all sorts of fear, like fear of abandonment and rejection and all those very human feelings that live just beneath the surface. And so very naturally, and there's nothing wrong with you for this, you feel drawn to lean forward to him to bridge that gap, to get some reassurance, to do something to bring the closeness and intimacy back. Now, the kind of guy who pulls away when you felt yourself opening up and letting your guard down is often drawn to the woman you are with your guard up, as that more aloof woman doesn't pose a risk to his possible fear of intimacy. He can feel the thrill of the pursuit without feeling the vulnerability of emotional closeness. And this is why I will always encourage you to learn how to stay emotionally open and at the same time strong and boundaried. So what does that sort of leaning forward, chasing feeling actually look like? Because it doesn't always feel like chasing. Sometimes it feels completely reasonable. So it can look like having big conversations with him about where the relationship is going, quite early on. It can look like your thoughts becoming completely preoccupied with him and analyzing him or asking yourself, what did I do wrong? What could I have done differently? How do I fix this? I used to do this all the time. I thought there must have been something I did wrong, and if only I corrected that, then he'd come back. So it can also look like sending a flirty message or a selfie just to remind him that you're still there and that you're fun and that you're pretty. And I've absolutely done that. It can also look like putting in tons of effort, like cooking for him, planning the dates, driving him different places, doing and giving and being in constant action. And all of it might feel loving, but all of it feels like effort. And potentially it's pushing him further away. Though, I'll talk more about this later, but I'd say it is quite hard to push away the right man. It's possible, but, it's hard. So men really value what they work for, and men fall in love through what they give being received by you. So when you fill all the space, when you're doing all the chasing, all the planning, all the initiating, you're taking away his ability then to step up and give to you. And when a man is giving and you are warm and open and receptive, he feels more like a man. He feels more connected to you. He falls more in love. We think we get more love by giving more, but with men it works the other way around. However, the caveat to all of that is the aim here is not to spend your precious life trying to get the attention of an intimacy shy or low effort man. I really do work with the idea that it's hard to do the right thing with the wrong man. And we want the wrong man to reveal himself so you can move on from him. And you don't need to be perfect, because I also believe it is hard to do the wrong thing with the right man. So if a man is pulling away, it isn't necessarily that you are leaning in and chasing and pushing him away, but rather I would want you to save your effort. And if a man is pulling away, let him pull away. You get on with your life, and he will, if he's the right guy, just like my client's husband, he's going to be back. So what do you do instead? Because I know that just saying do nothing or focus on yourself when you're sitting there feeling awful isn't helpful on its own. So here's what I want you to do, is to hang back. And I know that sounds almost impossible when you're in that anxious, activated state. But instead of reaching for your phone, instead of overthinking or planning your next move, literally just feel it. Feel the anxious, activated state you're in. And nobody taught us to do this. When we were young, nobody said, when you're feeling anxious and scared, just feel the feeling. So if this is new to you, I completely understand why it feels strange. But if you can, just let the feeling be there, that dropping feeling in your stomach, or the anxiety, the uncertainty, and let it be there without trying to anesthetize it by chasing him, and see if something shifts. So you go about your day, you drink your cups of tea, you go for a walk, you see your friends, you fold your laundry, you go to the gym, you live your life, you feel your feelings. This isn't about stuffing down the sadness or anxiety, but you just feel it. And it's not because you don't care, but because you're not going to chase someone who isn't choosing to be in your life at this moment. And here's what happens when you do this. You leave the space open either for him to step back into, because if he's the right man for you, he will come back, or for an even better man to step into. Because when you're busy chasing the wrong one, you cannot see the right one. And here's the thing I really, really want you to hear. When a man pulls away and disappears, he's showing you who he is. He's not showing you who he could be, not who he was on those first few dates when everything felt exciting, but who he actually is right now in this moment. Some men are intimacy avoidant. They get close, they feel the intimacy building, and then they pull back. And it's not about you. It's about their own relationship with closeness and vulnerability. But here is the thing. You can't love an avoidant man into being available. You can't chase him into readiness. All you can do is observe what he shows you and decide whether or not that works for you. Because as I say again and again, the relationship you want is the prize, not the man in front of you. So if you can really focus on, I know I want a committed relationship. I want to be with someone who shows me again and again that he loves and cares about me with his consistent actions over time. You can say, okay, what actions is this man taking? What is he telling me? Because a man who's genuinely interested in you and ready for a real relationship, he doesn't disappear, not for days or weeks at a time. He might have a busy period. He might be less available sometimes, but he won't leave you wondering if he still exists and if he's still into you, because he understands, whether consciously or not, that if he disappears, he risks losing you. And a man who is serious about you is not willing to take that risk. So when a man keeps disappearing and reappearing, as I experience, he's not confused and he's not just going through something. He's showing you his availability. And the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to hear it and take matters into your own hands, pick up that anxious inner child in you and walk away. Now, there's one more thing I want to say here, and it's something I find really important. When he pulls away, notice what happens inside of you. Do you pull away too? Do you shut down? Do you armor up?
Or does the distance make you lean in harder? Because that tells you something really valuable about your own patterns and your own tolerance for intimacy. The more you understand your own reactions, the more you raise your self-awareness around this, the more choice you have. It's no longer running you from the background. And here's what I've seen happen over and over again with the women I work with. The more they do this inner work, the more they raise their tolerance for intimacy, the more boring the hot and cold men become. They don't even make it onto the radar because the radar has recalibrated. It's looking for something completely different. It's looking for something consistent, committed, emotionally available. And when you find that, my darling, there's no confusion. There's just ease. So if he's pulling away right now, how about you just hang back? Feel the feelings, focus on your life. Don't chase or overthink. Don't send that cute flirty text or that pretty selfie. And look, I know it's really easy to say don't overthink. But as a recovering overthinker myself, but if you find yourself overthinking about him and beating yourself up, how about you just shift that overthinking to overthinking about the relationship you want? The relationship you want that is nothing to do with him, but the right man is going to be there in the relationship you want. You don't know what he looks like yet or sounds like, but you know you're on the way to that relationship. So you can keep dreaming as much as you like. You can future trip as much as you like about the relationship you want. But until a man really shows you that he's into you and that he really wants a future with you, catch yourself future tripping and overthinking about him and bring it back and send all of that energy to overthinking about your dream. And, leave the space open and see what he does with it while you're hanging back. Because the right man, the relationship-ready, emotionally mature man that I want for you, who is genuinely intentional about being with you, he'll step into that space. He will not risk losing you. And you will know without any shadow of a doubt that he's choosing you. And that is what you deserve. That kind of clarity and certainty. If you really want to start attracting something different, join me for my free training, The 9 Aspects of the Adored Woman. You can pick it up instantly and I will leave the link in the show notes. And until then, I will see you in the next episode. He had just taken the weekend to be sure in himself that he was ready to commit. Come Monday morning, he was back in touch with her and clear that he was.